What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I kind of just want to ramble about battle passes. And so this is probably going to come off very unorganized, very jumping around. I mean, that kind of is a theme with a lot of my videos that I hear the criticisms for, and that's okay. But I think with Suicide Squad, and I think with the discourse that I've seen around Twitter today, I felt like this was kind of timely to just kind of talk and get my thoughts out there. So the Suicide Squad thing obviously being the catalyst, being the thing that really kicked this off today. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I actually made a video just a few hours ago. It's on the channel. There's a leaked picture. Not going to show the picture. We're not going to really even talk about the picture, but it does have a Battle Pass, right? And again, this sparks, well, are battle passes inherently good? Are they bad? The mistakes, because Suicide Squad has one, does that mean the game is screwed? Can we declare it dead? 4 or 5 months before the game comes out, like, what do we do? So I guess where I stand, and I want to make like a blanket statement first, is that, well, number one, I know that everybody has their different opinions, and it sounds so cliche to say, but I truly do believe it. Once you live on the internet long enough, you realize if I don't like something, chances are there's going to be somebody who does, right? There's always going to almost be an opposite. So I will say, generally, I'm not a fan of battle passes. I don't think they are good. I think they kind of are an evil with the industry. They've kind of hurt the industry as time has gone on. Do I understand that some of the biggest games currently right now that people are still playing, also currently right now, have battle passes? Yes, I understand that. Again, for every one thing I can say, I can honestly look at the other side and realize where somebody's coming from. I know COD, I know Overwatch, I know Apex, I know Multiverses, all this stuff. The thing, I guess, where I stand is when you hear it, is it right? Let's just talk about that. When you first hear that a game is getting a battle pass in 2023, look at your calendar right now. When you hear that a game is getting a battle pass, what's the first thing you think? I feel the general first opinion people think is it's a negative. Now, where do you take that? Do you take that to declare the game dead early, right? And that's probably overstepping. And honestly, I try to not do that. So, for example, Suicide Squad, my general stance is I'm not thrilled. The rumor is it's cosmetics, so that's a positive. But we also don't know. We also don't know how this Battle Pass and live service stuff is going to, go in the first place. And, I do think just generally when you hear it, it just stings. It just has kind of a bad sound to it when you hear it now. And so the question that I would, want to discuss is, well, why? Why is it a negative thing? And I think the answer is pretty easy to figure out. For those that are saying, well, COD and Overwatch and like all these games, well, for every one game that does it right, and I am not saying that no game does it right. I actually think several games pull it off. I think not even battle passes, also just live service, right? Games that last a long time. Again, when I hear live service, I don't immediately think good thoughts. In fact, to be flat out honest, I think negative thoughts. I think, and here's why I think that. For every one game, for every Rocket League or Dead by Daylight, both of which I play, Rocket League more than Dead by Daylight, at least now, for every game that I genuinely enjoy, even me, and it's not my cup of tea, it's not my main thing that I play, but for every one of those games, you hear 10 failures. You see games that maybe have, excitement going into it, maybe don't, that try it, and then they completely fall apart. A thing to remember, too, is there's limited people on planet Earth. Yes, the number is always growing, but one thing that's also, I guess, limited is time. So you're maybe playing to maybe an ever-increasing market, but what you're not playing to is time. People only have so much time in a day. And as the gaming industry has ballooned into, if you go back and look, there were not this many games that ever came out, each month, right? This is kind of a new, like the last 10, 15 years, this is a new thing. Actually, even the last 5 or 6 years of the quantity of games, it's more than ever before. So you think about that and you think, okay, well, all these games are coming out and there's only so much time. I complain so much about my time that I only have so much time to play Persona before then playing Forspoken, to play Dead Space, and those are problems that I have. That's a me problem. But you also think about, if you want all your games to last 2-3 years each, well, people can only play one thing at a time. Maybe you can do two things. I'm horrible at it, but maybe you can. But there is a limit, right? So what does that have to do with it? Well, battle passes, live service games, you're expecting people to sink a large amount of time into. Time that is not infinite, it's finite. So you have that problem. You have too many of these games. you see it constantly happen where these games don't work, because also playing a game over and over, I think to a lot of people does eventually get repetitive and boring. You have to have either the game's loop has to be incredibly good, and or you have to have a really good, kind of future plan, future roadmap to keep people engaged, because the game is going to change in one person's mind playing it day one versus playing it 5-6 months later. If it's the exact same game, your opinion is going to change. Your want to play the game is going to change. So what do you need? You need something to spice it up. You need a battle pass. You need, live service elements. You need that stuff. I get it. And I also get it from money-wise. You can look at it from that side of the industry where games are expensive, releasing a game. Now, I draw some sort of a line. I hear the argument that the gaming industry, is very expensive to make games. Prices aren't really increasing, but obviously labor increases, technology, all that stuff. So when you release a game, they want more money, and the day one sales may not be enough. So what do? You try to get people every day for like 3 years through your live service game, right? That's what you try. I would counter that with saying if you made just a really spot-on game. Now, there is flaws with this, but if you made a spot-on game and you sold better than you think you would because it's a good game, then you wouldn't need to drag it out. With that being said, multiplayer is different than that, right? I'm almost talking about like a single-player kind of thing. It's debatable. It's definitely, there's flaws in it, I understand. And not every game, I guess you would expect, that's another thing. People only have so much money. That's also finite. So to expect every game, just because it's good, to sell outrageous numbers to prevent live service elements is also unrealistic, because that's actually then a problem with there's too many games coming out at once. There's too much going on in the gaming industry. Eventually, the gaming industry will realize this, and it'll kind of correct itself through pain and job losses and stuff. But, again, I'm getting off topic, but you know what? That's the whole point of this kind of video. So we got time. We got all those kind of elements. One other thing to talk about is, of course, changing up formula. And I think this is a case-by-case basis. This is a specific thing. So when you look at Suicide Squad, well, what's the issue with Suicide Squad? What could be an issue with Suicide Squad having a battle pass? Well, you look at their history. And when you take everything in context and you look at the industry and you say, all right, is it fair to float the theory that they are copying trends? And that specifically is a thing I've noticed people are upset about with Rocksteady, where I'll give you the exact example. Rocksteady was a leader. Rocksteady led the industry in some regards, right, through Arkham. They did things that others followed. The gaming industry is full of a couple leaders that do something kind of new, and then everybody else just follows. That's the gaming, and I guess that's life. That's Hollywood. That's literally just day-to-day things, right? So you have that. Whereas now, they are following a trend. And I know that just by saying Battle Pass, it doesn't necessarily feel like that, but if this game is a live service game, whether or not this game is good day one or whatever, if this game is meant to last more than the length of its campaign, then it's following a trend. Unless by some stroke of magic, they have found a way to take games as a service, live service, battle passes, and they've tried to reinvent it in only the way Rocksteady can do, which is like fabulous, right? The best way of, unless that happened, they are followers now. So I will say, while I am, and you can go back a few hours ago to the video, I am not declaring this game dead. I'm actually quite excited for this game. I'm ready to play it. I really want them to show more of it, but I mean, it's a day one get for me. It is. I'm going to get here. I'm raising my hand. I'm getting the game day one. But with that being said, I can say all that stuff, and I can say I'm going to give them chances, but I can also step on the other side and say, I think it's more than fair to realize that in the industry, you have, again, a couple things that goes on. They're now followers. They're not leaders, seemingly. And then this is not just a Suicide Squad. This is the entire, in every one of these games, that's why they fail. That's why they don't work. Not Suicide Squad. We can't actually declare it dead. We can declare games that are dead because they are, right? So you can look at it all around the industry and say, well, what was kind of their issue? Well, it only boils down to a few things. Time. People only have so much time. Your concept, because you have to have a game. Like, you have to have a game and then live service. Sometimes you don't. And what tends to happen with those is they fail because it's not even good enough to play it for like a week, and then you want people to keep going because you add more stuff. I'm not even giving examples. I'm sure I can think of some on the top of my head, but I won't even say it. It's the principle. It's the idea that people don't have unlimited time. They can only play so many things at once or so many games. And then at the end of the day, if your game doesn't grab them, then it doesn't matter if you want to keep them around for 6 months or not. And the idea here is it's an industry problem. It just keeps going. It keeps getting worse. For every one good live service game, you have 10 negative. So one final time for the people in the back. I'm not declaring this game dead if we're just talking about Suicide Squad. I really would probably say I wouldn't declare any game dead if it's in a similar situation. We haven't really seen that much of it. They come from a studio that's well respected, so is there reason to not trust them? I mean, their founders are leaving. That's one kind of negative big thing that's happening right after the game comes out. They've never done something like this before. But if you're just talking about it as an industry thing, maybe you can't declare it dead before the game comes out. You probably shouldn't, right? Don't jump the gun. But at the end of the day, you can make some inferences. You can say, well, it's not a great trend. Like, it's these bloated open world games, right, that are just like 500 hours long, and every game feels they need to be longer than they need to be. You don't need to declare the game dead when they announce that, but what do you normally do? You normally have that thought in your head where it's like, well, is it 80 hours because it needs to be, or is it because you're trying to keep people in the game and you filled it with fluff and you filled it with things that didn't need to be there? It's more than just, live service is, I think, the biggest issue, but there's also those other things too. And it's the same principle. Maybe you don't declare it dead, but you think, wow, there's kind of a trend. For every one game that does it right, there's failures, a lot of failure. And then also, specifically Suicide Squad, but you could probably use it for different cases, you look at them changing kind of the DNA of what the team is. If the team was built to do one thing, and then now they're doing live service, well, the best we hope for Suicide Squad, using that as an example, is that they managed to inject everything they were good at with the Arkham games, and that is in it. That is Suicide Squad, with original concept, characters, whatever. And then on top of that, they threw in live service, afterwards. That's the best case scenario that you're But the worst case scenario is you took a team of very talented people and you told them that what they're good at, they're still good at, but it doesn't really matter to this game. We want you to do a whole different set of things for this game. That's the worry. And I feel like that is very, that's okay to think. That's a thing just in general. I won't get too far off on a tangent on that one, but like why you can't think both partially, why you have to kind of draw your line in the sand, why you have to declare it one way or the other. I just don't understand it, because I think you can think that Suicide Squad has a talented team behind it, but there's worrisome signs with live service and battle passes and the industry as well, why you can't do both and why you can't realize that, no, it's not just... I've seen so many people today, a little bit of a tangent, I've seen so many people today talking about, you guys are just mad about the battle pass of Suicide Squad because of Marvel's Avengers. And it's like, well, no, it's not. Marvel's Avengers, the only reason people bring that up, or when you think of Cyberpunk, it's the catalyst for this issue that's always been there, that's kind of been building up. Cyberpunk is not the only game to come out completely broken. Cyberpunk is not the only game to break promises, or whatever you want to say Cyberpunk did wrong at launch. I promise you, it's not the only game to do it. But what did it have? It was that boiling point. It was all of it came out with Cyberpunk. And same thing with Avengers. To say, oh, you're just mad because it didn't work with Avengers. But what about COD? Well, the thing with Avengers was you're taking the Avengers, and you can make a really good single-player game. Or you could try to do everything and also do live service, but really, really focus on the live service elements. We want to milk the game. And that's what they did. And so it's not the first game to do it, and it won't be the last. And it's not even the biggest one. But it kind of just all came out with Marvel's Avengers. And honestly, it could come out with Suicide Squad as well, depending on how it goes. But that's where the comparisons come from. It's not a bad thing. It's, again, important to remember the opposite side, where studios aren't even. The talent level at one is not equal to the talent of the other. Publishers are sometimes different. They're, the instructions that get, written down and passed off through the ranks, those are different, right? So you got to remember all these sides of things, but that's kind of where I stand. I'm not declaring Suicide Squad dead, but for the people that are saying, like, it's not an issue, it's an opinion. I mean, it's my opinion versus their opinion. That's totally fine. But I guess where I stand is I think it's okay to say that live service and battle pass elements probably inherently, I mean, at least for me, I can tell you, I think of it as a negative. Are they a negative? I guess that's subjective. But again, then you kind of dig into the research and you think, well, yes, a lot of the games at the top of like the Steam charts, they are live service. But would you like to look at all the games that aren't that failed? Like for the top 10 on Steam, if 7 of them are live service, I bet you can find 70 or even 700 times it by 10 times by 100 that failed, that are also live service. They had the same hopes and aspirations as that top 10 list. And guess what happened? They failed. For whatever reason, they failed. And because of that, I feel like you need to kind of be aware that that is, honestly, if you want to go into like math, that is statistically a higher probability that it happens versus it succeeding. I mean, honestly, if you want to look at it like that, I wouldn't have much to say. If you want to look at Suicide Squad and say, literally, I'm an idiot, I know absolutely nothing about literally anything, but I do know that, say, the percentage of a live service game working is 10%. Let's just give it that number. Suicide Squad has it, and again, this is debatable because we don't know how much of live service, but okay, Suicide Squad has a battle pass. 90% of the time it fails. 10% it succeeds. No allegiance, no alliances. You're an idiot. You know absolutely nothing. You only know those percentages. Which one's more likely? Which one's more likely? Which one are you going to go with? The one that makes the most sense, right? And so if you kind of take yourself all out of it, I guess, that's kind of where you would land. I don't know why it's so hard for people to at least imagine why somebody would think something. So this is very odd video. I assume it's going to get dislikes. I assume I'm going to be told that I have no script. That's okay. I wanted to try something pretty new, pretty different. If you guys like this stuff, I can definitely do more of it, in the future. So let me know what you think. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. I'll see you all on the next one.